The reality of the situation is that the Lakers are the best situation for Carmelo Anthony. In ISO situations, he can still do some things. I believe at age 35, Carmelo Anthony with LeBron James and AD as teammates can average 15 a game for you coming off the bench. I really believe that because, again, if you get the opportunities to shoot, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about shooting 40%. I think Melo could shoot a 43, 44% from the field in an ISO situation. I think he could give you 13 to 15 points playing with LeBron, playing with AD, and more importantly, in LA with something to play for. We got to take this into consideration. And it's very difficult for me because Melo's one of my favorite people that I've covered. I mean, you got guys that are the creme de la creme, like Dwayne Wade and others that are just class personified, and, I'll know them and love them forever. But you look at a guy like Carmelo Anthony, really, really good guy, been in the league for 17 years. This is a dude that was the number 3 overall pick. 2003, LeBron James went number 1. Joe Dumars made a mistake by drafting Darko Milicic instead of Carmelo Anthony because he had Tayshaun. Well, the reason why is because they were a championship contender. He had Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Rip Hamilton, and
I don't care why he did it. That was idiotic when it happened.
I felt that, well, see, you could say that's idiotic. I think it was idiotic to take Darko. I don't think it was idiotic for him to pass up on Melo. He could have grabbed somebody like a Chris Bosh, for example. Something like that. Because Chris Bosh went number 4.
I can't be mad at Chris Bosh.
Chris Bosh went number 4. D-Wade went number 5 overall. That was a huge mistake by Joe Dumars. But the reality is that Melo was the number 3 overall pick, a national champion coming out of Syracuse, one of the prolific scorers the game had ever seen, averaged 24 in his career in the NBA. You know that Carmelo Anthony has never played in an NBA Finals? Ever. Wow. Do you know that he's only been? The reality of the situation is that the Lakers are the best situation for Carmelo Anthony. In ISO situations, he can still do some things. I believe at age 35, Carmelo Anthony with LeBron James and AD as teammates can average 15 a game for you coming off the bench. I really believe that because, again, if you get the opportunities to shoot, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about shooting 40%. I think Melo could shoot a 43, 44% from the field in an ISO situation. I think he could give you 13 to 15 points playing with LeBron, playing with AD, and more importantly, in LA with something to play for. We got to take this into consideration. And it's very difficult for me because Melo's one of my favorite people that I've covered. I mean, you got guys that are the creme de la creme, like Dwayne Wade and others that are just class personified, and, I'll know them and love them forever. But you look at a guy like Carmelo Anthony, really, really good guy, been in the league for 17 years. This is a dude that was the number 3 overall pick. 2003, LeBron James went number 1. Joe Dumars made a mistake by drafting Darko Milicic instead of Carmelo Anthony because he had Tayshaun. Well, the reason why is because they were a championship contender. He had Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Rip Hamilton, and
I don't care why he did it. That was idiotic when it happened.
I felt that, well, see, you could say that's idiotic. I think it was idiotic to take Darko. I don't think it was idiotic for him to pass up on Melo. He could have grabbed somebody like a Chris Bosh, for example. Something like that. Because Chris Bosh went number 4.
I can't be mad at Chris Bosh.
Chris Bosh went number 4. D-Wade went number 5 overall. That was a huge mistake by Joe Dumars. But the reality is that Melo was the number 3 overall pick, a national champion coming out of Syracuse, one of the prolific scorers the game had ever seen, averaged 24 in his career in the NBA. You know that Carmelo Anthony has never played in an NBA Finals? Ever. Wow. Do you know that he's only been to 1 conference finals in his entire career? And so when I look at it from that perspective, I'm saying I'm rooting for him because I want him to get one last shot at the apple. I don't want his career. I don't want his epitaph to be the ending, the culmination, be last year, 10 games, getting waived or moved along by the Houston Rockets. I want it to be something like this, and I think this is the only situation that works for him.
Agreed. Lakers are the only situation. Let me just say quickly, this is what Carmelo can still do, I think, because I've seen him do it before. He could be, because it was a first unit, of course, but he could be the centerpiece of a second unit where he's the ISO scorer because he can ISO and kick, too. If you surround him with shooters in a second unit, you need 1 ball handler and just shooters around Carmelo, then he either can score in ISO in the second unit against second unit players or kick to open shooters. He knows how to do that. And so for a team who needs live bodies, he can do that on the Lakers.
So, Stephen A., it sounds like you're saying that by joining the Lakers, should that be the case, Melo can change his legacy.
I think that he can modify it to some degree. We'd have a better picture of him in the end. If Melo, let's say for example, they don't win the championship. They don't even make it to the finals. But they go to the Western Conference Finals, and Melo is on that roster. And he's a solid contributor. I think memories of him would be better. I'm looking at D. Wade. D. Wade is a shell of what he used to be, even though he showed that he could still ball. But you can't take away 3 championships. You can't take away 5 trips to the NBA Finals. You can't take away a 5-time MVP. You look at him. You look at LeBron. But then we look at somebody like CP3, because you're talking about the banana boat crew, as they like to joke around. Folks like to joke around and call them. CP3 has never played in the finals either. He got to a conference finals, but he never played in the finals. But here's the difference. When you're 6 feet, devoid of athleticism, and your resume involves floor generalship, that's entirely different than you being 6'8", 240, a primary offensive weapon and option, came out in the same draft as LeBron James, #1 and #3 overall, and LeBron James has been to 9 NBA Finals, and that's your man, and you never been to 1. There's a different comparison that is there,
well,
and so it's viewed differently.
This is the problem, and you know, time tells, it always does, right? And here's what time told about Carmelo. I don't mean to be unkind, but just being honest here. He's a great offensive player.
Great offensive player.
He's a great scorer in particular.
Well, that's what I'm
saying.
Great
offensive player because the scoring was out of control. And he was underrated, as I said, he could kick and find open guys.
Right.
Great ISO scorer especially. He was not good enough to be the best player on a championship team. He's miscast as that guy. He's good enough to be the second best player on a championship team. Chris Bosh wasn't good enough to be the best, but second or third, or if you have 2 guys as good as Bosh. LeBron James was the best player on a championship team. Dwayne Wade, in his prime, was good enough to be the best player on a championship team. LeBron's the best. Wade is next. Carmelo's under Wade, but still a great player.
I'll close by saying this, and just give me, when I finish, I'll let you close by telling us whether you agree or disagree just real quickly, because there's 2 very profound things that come with Melo's resume. And I take no joy in saying this, but it's the truth. A, he went for the money. He was supposed to be in Miami instead of Chris Bosh. It was supposed to be him, D. Wade, and LeBron. In 2007, they all had an opportunity to re-up. Right before then, Melo signs a 5-year, $80 million extension. Why? He said, man, I'm from the streets of Baltimore, man. I ain't passing up on that kind of guaranteed money. That was his position. LeBron, D. Wade, and Bosh all bet on themselves and made sure they had an opt-out in their clauses that would get them out in 2010 and be a free agent. That's point number 1. Point number 2, what do we rave about with LeBron? Not just his greatness as a player, his commitment to excellence, his dominance, the way he takes care of his body, etc. No one has ever accused Melo of that. As a matter of fact, they looked at LeBron and then looked at Melo and said, as great as you are, we think you could have done more to take care of yourself so you would not have faded as quickly as you faded in the last couple of years of your career. So it's not about age and attrition. It's about the level of commitment you put towards yourself.
Mr. Triple-Double, Russell Westbrook is headed to L.A. in a blockbuster trade with the Wizards for Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and the 22nd pick in yesterday's draft, which turned out to be Isaiah Jackson of Kentucky. Now, look, assuming the deal goes through, the Lakers will have 3 of the top 7 active leaders in career points per game next season. The trio is combined for 30 All-Star, All-NBA selections. According to Elias, they joined Karl Malone, Shaq, and Gary Payton with the 2003-2004 Lakers as the only trios to enter a season with 30 such selections. And all you can say is wow if you're from L.A. NBA reporter Dave McMenamin joins us now with more. Dave, we've got another big 3 here in L.A. with Westbrook, LeBron, and A.D. So how do the Lakers see all these guys fitting together?
Wow, indeed. You're talking about Russell Westbrook at 32 years old. For the last 5 seasons, he averaged a triple-double, but it's not an obvious fit because LeBron James is such a ball-dominant player. Now, the LA Times reported that Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and LeBron James all got together at James's residence in the last couple weeks to hash things out and make it clear that everyone would be willing to sacrifice for the good of the whole. And I had a league source telling me that Russell Westbrook could be nothing but great for Anthony Davis in terms of his intensity rubbing off on the young big man. And so Anthony's motor gets going more so in the regular season. And let's not forget that LeBron, as he enters into year 18, going to turn 37 years old in December, it's not the worst thing in the world to add a guy who played 65 out of 72 games last year, who is durable, who's willing to take on a big load in the regular season, and perhaps you can save some of LeBron's legs and his body for the postseason where it really matters.
That would be huge for a Lakers team that was banged up with injuries last year. And Dave, we know that the Lakers finished 7th in the West last season. We talked about the injuries, but they also depleted a lot of their bench in this trade. So what other moves could we see them make this offseason to improve their roster?
Yeah, Ryan, they had to do a lot of them. They only have 4 guys under contract right now when you talk about the big 3 plus Marc Gasol. First, you look at their 2 guys that they have the birds rights, 2 guards, in Talen Horton-Tucker, who they've already made a qualifying offer to make him a restricted free agent. So anyone who was to make an offer towards him, the Lakers could match. Alex Caruso, another guy who is an unrestricted free agent, but they're going to make a deal. But look at veteran minimum type guys. We're talking about Carmelo Anthony. We're talking about J.J. Redick. The Lakers were 21st in three-point shooting last year. And a guy they could target with their mid-level exception is Patty Mills out of the San Antonio Spurs. Championship experience, great international experience, playing in big, huge games, and he can really shoot the ball from the outside. The Lakers are going to need to add some shooters here because they already stripped away their best one in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in the Russell Westbrook trade.
And they'll need a lot of depth on that bench. That could be a great answer for them. Dave McMenamin with the very latest on the Lakers' big deal.
Trade deadline to big trade in the NBA. New big 3, LeBron, AD, and Russell Westbrook. When the deal goes through, Lakers are just going to have 4 players with guaranteed contracts on their roster: LeBron, Westbrook, Anthony Davis, and Marc Gasol. But each is a multi-time All-Star with a combined 37 All-Star appearances between them. Still, they have some work to do to round out that entire roster. ESPN Lakers reporter Dave McMenamin joining us now on SportsCenter. Dave, what's been the reaction in L.A. to this new big 3 of Westbrook, LeBron, and AD?
Well, Jay, certainly this is a unique type of fit they're trying to put together with LeBron at the stage he is of his career, Anthony Davis, an ascending talent, and then Russell Westbrook tapering off to some degree. Now, on the plus side, I had a league source tell me that, 1, Russell Westbrook will be a great influence around Anthony Davis. His intensity is something that can't be denied and should only rub off on AD to take every single night as if it's a do-or-die situation. Also, as LeBron gets up there, year 18, going to turn 37 years old in December, having Russell Westbrook be able to take innings during the regular season, to borrow a Jeff Passan term, be in there and play full bore will allow LeBron, on some extent, to have moments where he doesn't have to carry the load during the regular season. Now, on the flip side, there are some fit questions. Russell Westbrook shot just 31% from 3 last year. They shipped out Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who was their marquee three-point shooter on their run to the championship in the bubble a couple years ago. And the deal that they didn't do with the Sacramento Kings would have yielded them another shooter in Buddy Hield. So shooting a big question mark here, but certainly, as the LA Times reported, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook all got together on the same page a couple weeks ago at LeBron's house and said, we'll all sacrifice whatever needs to be done in order to make this work.
So we just saw the team's current roster featuring just the 4 players with the guaranteed contracts. So what's the front office plan for filling out the rest of the roster alongside that new big 3?
Well, you start with the guys who they would have the rights to be able to retain to go above the salary cap. Talen Horton-Tucker, they've already tendered a restricted contract, a qualifying contract that would allow him to be a restricted free agent so they can match any deal from the outside. They like him a lot. The second-year guard who they got in the second round a couple years ago. Alex Caruso is a free agent, and that's someone who they've also grown in their program. They would like to keep if the price is right, but they're going to have to look outside, and it's going to be a lot of veteran minimum contract type of guys. The names that you're going to hear are players like Jeff Green, Carmelo Anthony, players of that ilk, guys who have been around a lot who would like to join a potential championship club? And then what do they do with the taxpayer mid-level exception? That's going to be key, vital for what they do. They break it up to try to pay a couple guys above the veteran minimum contract, or do you go after a name like a Patty Mills from San Antonio, a guy with championship experience who is a dead-eye three-point shooter? Because they're going to need to add shooting to this group as much as they're going to just need to add some bodies to fill out a full roster.
Yeah, and LA once again the second shortest odds to win the 2022 title behind Brooklyn. Dave McMenamin, good to see you, bro. Let's go Russell Westbrook by the numbers as he gives LA its new big three. LeBron, AD, Westbrook combining for 34 All-Star selections. They'd be the second team to have a trio with that many, along with the 2011 Celtics, who featured Shaq, KG, and Paul Pierce. Gives the Lakers two of the best playmakers of all time, LeBron and Westbrook, combining for 283 career triple-doubles. Westbrook is the all-time leader in that category, LeBron ranking 5th. There's a question, though, how they're going to fit. Dave just talked about it a bit. Westbrook shooting just over 30% from three in his career, the second worst all-time among players with 2,000 attempts in an area the Lakers ranked 21st in last season.